All right, sorry about the late start. Had an issue where the microphone wouldn't show up until I unplugged it and replugged it. And there were some other miscellaneous technical issues, but those are over and done with now. Welcome back to another thrilling episode of What Do You Mean Frag is a New Slash Old Microphone Wednesdays. So this week we are going to be using my new mic again. What I'm going to do is, let me see how long these first couple stories in Beyond the Rift are. Oh, good. The Things is in here. The Things is dynamite. The Things um, is one of the early things that got me into Peter Watts. All right, the first two here. How long is this second one? This one just keeps on going. Am I crazy? Okay, well, that one's like 50 pages long. Okay, 30 pages long. Let's see if there's another short one in here. Anyway, um, tentatively we'll do like the first two. What I'm going to, or first three stories rather, and I'm going to switch between um, my existing mic, which you're hearing now, and the new mic at various points to see how different it sounds, so people can get a certain degree of side by side. Right now, we're using the old microphone, which is part of a headset, a perfectly functional headset. Um, but I've been wanting to improve sound quality for a little while now, and this is my opportunity because I forgot that I had an ancient microphone lying around. I thought it got lost in the move. It did not. Okay. So I guess we'll do it on like a page by page basis, roughly. So one page I'll be with this mic, what the next page I'll be with the other one. So there'll be weird interruptions and clicking, but above and beyond the normal, I should say. Uh, Lord knows we have enough of it. Um, let me put a bookmark in there so I know that that is the initial stopping point. And I'll read the foreword too. I think he's got a foreword. Does he have a foreword or is it all afterword? He has no foreword, so it will be an afterword. So the thing I think I read from this before was a thing that nominally tied into Starfish. It's a scene that winds up being partially reused and then gets rejiggered quite a bit, and it's a different beast. Anyway, with that said, let's rock and roll. We may continue reading through this on Friday as well, because why not? It's convenient. I haven't done some Watts in a while because he doesn't release books anymore. Please, Watts, please. I have an addiction. Give me my fix, is what I'm saying. Anyway, without further ado, let's rock. Oh, I take it back. We're not rocking yet. This thing is going to be ornery because I don't remember the hotkey I set. There it is. Okay. Also, I need the cable to be longer. The cable length is fine. I need to have it not bound up. Cable unbound. Jeez Louise, there we go. Takes us long enough, doesn't it? All right, so first page we'll use this microphone, and then second page we'll use the new one. And so on and so forth, until it is done. Peter Watts, Beyond the Rift. The Things by Peter Watts. I am being Blair. I escape out the back as the world comes in through the front. I am being Copper. I am rising from the dead. I am being Childs. I am guarding the main entrance. The names don't matter. They are placeholders, nothing more. All biomass is interchangeable. What matters is that these are all that is left of me. The world has burned everything else. I see myself through the window, loping through the storm, wearing Blair. Macready has told me to burn Blair if he comes back alone, but Macready thinks I am one of him. I am not. I am being Blair, and I am at the door. I am being Childs, and I let myself in. I take brief communion, tendrils writhing forth from my faces, intertwining. I am Blair Childs, exchanging news of the world. The world has found me out. It has discovered my burrow beneath the tool shed, the half-finished lifeboat cannibalized from the viscera of dead helicopters. The world is busy destroying my means of escape. Then it will come back for me. There is only one option left. I disintegrate. Being Blair, I go to share the plan with Copper and to feed on the rotting biomass once called Clark. So many changes in so short a time have dangerously depleted my reserves. Being Childs, I have already consumed what was left of Fuchs and am replenished for the next phase. I sling the flamethrower onto my back and head outside, into the long Antarctic night. I will go into the storm and never come back.
I was so much more before the crash. I was an explorer, an ambassador, a missionary. I spread across the cosmos, met countless worlds, took communion. The fit reshaped the unfit, and the whole universe bootstrapped upwards in joyful, infinitesimal increments. I was a soldier at war with entropy. I was the very hand by which creation perfects itself. So much wisdom I had, so much experience. Now I cannot remember all the things I knew. I can only remember that once I knew them. I remember the crash, though. It killed most of this offshoot outright, but a little crawled from the wreckage, a few trillion cells, a soul too weak to keep them in check. Mutinous biomass sloughed off despite my most desperate attempts to hold myself together, panic-stricken little clots of meat instinctively growing whatever limbs they could remember and fleeing across the burning ice. By the time I'd regained control of what was left, the fires had died and the cold was closing back in. I barely managed to grow enough antifreeze to keep my cells from bursting before the ice took me. I remember my reawakening, too. Dull stirrings of sensation in real time, the first embers of cognition, the slow, blooming warmth of awareness as my cells thawed, as body and soul embraced after their long sleep. I remember the biped offshoots that surrounded me, the strange chittering sounds they made, the odd uniformity of their body plans. How ill-adapted they looked, how inefficient their morphology. Even disabled, I could see so many things to fix. So I reached out. I took communion. I tasted the flesh of the world, and the world attacked me. It attacked me. I left that place in ruins. It was on the other side of the mountains, the Norwegian camp, as it is called here, and I could never have crossed that distance in a biped skin. Fortunately, there was another shape to choose from, smaller than the biped, but better adapted to the local climate. I hid within it while the rest of me fought off the attack. I fled into the night on 4 legs and let the rising flames cover my escape. I did not stop running until I arrived here. I walked among these new offshoots wearing the skin of a quadruped, and because they had not seen me take any other shape, they did not attack. And when I assimilated them in turn, when my biomass changed and flowed into shapes unfamiliar to local eyes, I took that communion in solitude, having learned that the world does not like what it doesn't know.
I am alone in the storm. I am a bottom dweller on the floor of some murky alien sea. The snow blows past in horizontal streaks. Caught against gullies or outcroppings, it spins into blinding little whirlwinds. But I am not nearly far enough, not yet. Looking back, I still see the camp crouching brightly in the gloom, a squat, angular jumble of light and shadow, a bubble of warmth in the howling abyss. It plunges into darkness as I watch. I've blown the generator. Now there's no light but for the beacons along the guide ropes, strings of dim blue stars whipping back and forth in the wind, emergency constellations to guide lost biomass back home. I am not going home. I am not lost enough. I forge on into darkness until even the stars disappear. The faint shouts of angry, frightened men carry behind me on the wind. Somewhere behind me, my disconnected biomass regroups into vaster, more powerful shapes for the final confrontation. I could have joined myself, all in one, chosen unity over fragmentation, resorbed and taken comfort in the greater whole. I could have added my strength to the coming battle. But I have chosen a different path. I am saving child's reserves for the future. The present holds nothing but annihilation. Best not to think on the past. I've spent so very long in the ice already. I didn't know how long until the world put the clues together, deciphered the notes and the tapes from the Norwegian camp, pinpointed the crash site. I was being Palmer then. Unsuspected, I went along for the ride. I even allowed myself the smallest ration of hope. But it wasn't a ship anymore. It wasn't even a derelict. It was a fossil, embedded in the floor of a great pit blown from the glacier. 20 of these skins could have stood one atop another and barely reached the lip of that crater. The time scale settled down on me like the weight of the world. Of a world, sorry. How long for all that ice to accumulate? How many eons had the universe iterated on without me? And in all that time, a million years perhaps, there'd been no rescue. I never found myself. I wonder what that means. I wonder if I even exist anymore, anywhere but here. Back at camp, I will erase the trail. I will give them their final battle, their monster to vanquish. Let them win. Let them stop looking. Here in the storm, I will return to the ice. I've barely even been away, after all, alive for only a few days out of all these endless ages. But I've learned enough in that time. I learned from the wreck that there will be no repairs. I learned from the ice that there will be no rescue. And I learned from the world that there will be no reconciliation. The only hope of escape now is into the future, to outlast all this hostile, twisted biomass, to let time and the cosmos change the rules. Perhaps the next time I awaken, this will be a different world. It will be eons before I see another sunrise.
This is what the world taught me, that adaptation is provocation. Adaptation is incitement to violence. It feels almost obscene, an offense against creation itself, to stay stuck in this skin. It's so ill suited to its environment that it needs to be wrapped in multiple layers of fabric just to stay warm. There are a myriad ways I could optimize it: shorter limbs, better insulation, a lower surface to volume ratio. All these shapes I still have within me, and I dare not use any of them even to keep out the cold. I dare not adapt. In this place, I can only hide. What kind of a world rejects communion? It's the simplest, most irreducible insight that biomass can have. The more you can change, the more you can adapt. Adaptation is fitness. Adaptation is survival. It's deeper than intelligence, deeper than tissue. It is cellular. It is axiomatic. And more, it is pleasurable. To take communion is to experience the sheer sensual delight of bettering the cosmos. And yet, even trapped in these maladapted skins, this world doesn't want to change. At first, I thought it might simply be starving, that these icy wastes didn't provide enough energy for routine shapeshifting. Or perhaps this was some kind of laboratory, an anomalous corner of the world, pinched off and frozen into these freakish shapes as part of some arcane experiment on monomorphism in extreme environments. After the autopsy, I wondered if the world had simply forgotten how to change. Unable to touch the tissues, the soul could not sculpt them, and time and stress and sheer chronic starvation had erased the memory that it ever could. But there were too many mysteries, too many contradictions. Why these particular shapes, so badly suited to their environment? If the soul was cut off from the flesh, what held the flesh together? And how could these skins be so empty when I moved in? I'm used to finding intelligence everywhere, winding through every part of every offshoot. But there was nothing to grab onto in the mindless biomass of this world, just conduits carrying orders and input. I took communion when it wasn't offered. I took communion when it wasn't offered. The skins I chose struggled and succumbed. My fibrils infiltrated the wet electricity of organic systems everywhere. I saw through eyes that weren't yet quite mine, commandeered motor nerves to move limbs still built of alien protein. I wore these skins as I've worn countless others, took the controls and left the assimilation of individual cells to follow at its own pace. But I could only wear the body. I could find no memories to absorb, no experiences, no comprehension. Survival depended on blending in, and it was not enough to merely look like this world. I had to act like it, and for the first time in living memory, I did not know how. Even more frighteningly, I didn't have to. The skins I assimilated continued to move, all by themselves. They conversed and went about their appointed rounds. I could not understand it. I threaded further into limbs and viscera with each passing moment, alert for signs of the original owner. I could find no networks but mine. Of course, it could have been much worse. I could have lost it all, been reduced to a few cells with nothing but instinct and their own plasticity to guide them. I would have grown back eventually, reattained sentience, taken communion, and regenerated an intellect vast as a world, but I would have been an orphan, amnesiac, with no sense of who I was. At least I've been spared that. I emerged from the crash with my identity intact, the templates of 1,000 worlds still resonant in my flesh. I've retained not just the brute desire to survive, but the conviction that survival is meaningful. I can still feel joy should there be sufficient cause. And yet, how much more there used to be. The wisdom of so many other worlds lost. All that remains are fuzzy abstracts, half memories of theorems and philosophies far too vast to fit into such an impoverished network. I could assimilate all the biomass of this place, rebuild body and soul to 1,000,000 times the capacity of what crashed here, but as long as I am trapped at the bottom of this well, denied communion with my greater self, I will never recover that knowledge. I'm such a pitiful fragment of what I was. Each lost cell takes a little of my intellect with it, and I have grown so very small. Where once I thought, now I merely react. How much of this could have been avoided if I had only salvaged a little more biomass from the wreckage? How many options am I not seeing because my soul simply isn't big enough to contain them?
The world spoke to itself in the same way I do when my communications are simple enough to convey without somatic fusion. Even as dog, I could still pick up basic signature morphemes. This offshoot was Windows, that one was Bennings. The two who'd left in their flying machine for parts unknown were Copper and Macready, and I marveled that these bits and pieces stayed isolated from one another, held the same shapes for so long that the labeling of individual aliquots of biomass actually served a useful purpose. And now you know it's a Peter Watts publication because the word aliquots popped up. The other one you'll know will be, it's not Stygian, it's benthic. If we get the word benthic, then you have a bingo. A Peter Watts bingo. Where were we? Held the same shapes for so long that the labeling of individual aliquots of biomass actually served a useful purpose. Later, I hid within the bipeds themselves, and whatever else lurked in those haunted skins began to talk to me. It said that bipeds were called guys, or men, or assholes. It said that Macready was sometimes called Mac. It said that this collection of structures was a camp. It said that it was afraid, but maybe that was just me. Empathy's inevitable, of course. One can't mimic the sparks and chemicals that motivate the flesh without also feeling them to some extent. But this was different. These intuitions flickered within me, yet somehow hovered beyond reach. My skins wandered the halls and the cryptic symbols on every surface. Laundry shed, welcome to the clubhouse, this side up, almost made a kind of sense. That circular artifact hanging on the wall was a clock. It measured the passage of time. The world's eyes flitted here and there, and I skimmed piecemeal nomenclature from his mind. But I was only riding a searchlight. I saw what it illuminated, but I couldn't point it in any direction of my own choosing. I could eavesdrop, but I could not interrogate. If only one of those searchlights had paused to dwell on its own evolution, on the trajectory that had brought it to this place. How differently things might have ended, had I only known. But instead it rested on a whole new word. Autopsy. Macready and Copper had found part of me at the Norwegian camp. A rearguard offshoot burned in the wake of my escape. They'd brought it back, charred, twisted, frozen in mid-transformation, and did not seem to know what it was. I was being Palmer then, and Norris, and Dog. I gathered around with the other biomass and watched as Copper cut me open and pulled out my insides. I watched as he dislodged something from behind my eyes, an organ of some kind. It was malformed and incomplete, but its essentials were clear enough. It looked like a great wrinkled tumor, like cellular competition gone wild, as though the very processes that defined life had somehow turned against it instead. It was obscenely vascularized. It must have consumed oxygen and nutrients far out of proportion to its mass. I could not see how anything like that could even exist, how it could have reached that size without being outcompeted by more efficient morphologies. Nor could I imagine what it did. But then I began to look with new eyes at these offshoots, these biped shapes my own cells had so scrupulously and unthinkingly copied when they reshaped me for this world. Unused to inventory, why catalog body parts that only turn into other things at the slightest provocation, I really saw, for the first time, that swollen structure atop each body. So much larger than it should be, a bony hemisphere into which a million ganglionic interfaces could fit with room to spare. Every offshoot had one. Each piece of biomass carried one of these huge, twisted clots of tissue. I realized something else, too. The eyes, the ears of my dead skin had fed into this thing before its removal. A massive bundle of fibers ran along the thing's longitudinal axis, right up the middle of the endoskeleton, leading directly into the dark, sticky cavity where the growth had rested. That misshapen structure had been wired into the whole skin, like some kind of somatocognitive interface, but vastly more massive. It was almost as if... No, that was how it worked. That was how these empty skins moved of their own volition, why I'd found no other network to integrate. There it was, not distributed throughout the body, but balled up into itself, dark and dense and insisted. I had found the ghost in these machines. I felt sick. I shared my flesh with thinking cancer.
Sometimes even hiding is not enough. I remember seeing myself splayed across the floor of the kennel, a chimera split along 100 seams, taking communion with a handful of offshoots called dog. Crimson tendrils writhed on the floor. Half-formed iterations sprouted from my flanks, the shapes of dogs and things not seen before on this world, haphazard morphologies half remembered by parts of a part. I remembered Childs before I was Childs, burning me alive. I remember cowering inside Palmer, terrified that those flames might turn on the rest of me, that this world had somehow learned to shoot on sight. I remember seeing myself stagger through the snow, raw instinct wearing bennings. Gnarled, undifferentiated clumps clung to his hands like crude parasites, more outside than in. A few surviving fragments of some previous massacre, crippled, mindless, taking what they could and breaking cover. Men swarmed about him in the night, red flares in hand, blue lights at their backs, their faces bichromatic and beautiful. I remember Bennings, awash in flames, howling like an animal beneath the sky. I remember Norris, betrayed by his own perfectly copied defective heart. Palmer, dying that the rest of me might live. Windows, still human, burned preemptively. The names don't matter. The biomass does. So much of it lost. So much new experience, so much fresh wisdom annihilated by this world of thinking tumors. Why even dig me up? Why carve me from the ice, carry me all that way across the wastes, bring me back to life only to attack me the moment I awoke? If eradication was the goal, why not just kill me where I lay?
Those insisted souls, those tumors, hiding away in their bony caverns, folded in on themselves. I knew they couldn't hide forever. This monstrous anatomy had only slowed communion, not stopped it. Every moment I grew a little. I could feel myself twining around Palmer's motor wiring, sniffing upstream along a million tiny currents. I could sense my infiltration of that dark thinking mass behind Blair's eyes. Imagination, of course. It's all reflex that far down, unconscious and immune to micromanagement. And yet, a part of me wanted to stop while there was still time. I'm used to incorporating souls, not rooming with them. This, this, this bleh. This compartmentalization was unprecedented. I've assimilated 1,000 worlds stronger than this, but never one so strange. What would happen when I met the spark in the tumor? Who would assimilate who? I was being 3 men by now. The world was growing wary, but it hadn't noticed yet. Even the tumors in the skins I'd taken didn't know how close I was. For that, I could only be grateful. That creation has rules, that some things don't change no matter what shape you take. It doesn't matter whether a soul spreads throughout the skin or festers in grotesque isolation, it still runs on electricity. The memories of men still took time to gel, to pass through whatever gatekeepers filtered noise from signal, and a judicious burst of static, however indiscriminate, still cleared those caches before their contents could be stored permanently. Clear enough, at least, to let these tumors simply forget that something else moved their arms and legs on occasion. At first I only took control when the skins closed their eyes and their searchlights flickered disconcertingly across unreal imagery, patterns that flowed senselessly into one another like hyperactive biomass unable to settle on a single shape. Dreams, one searchlight told me, and a little later, nightmares. During those mysterious periods of dormancy, when the men lay inert and isolated, it was safe to come out. Soon, though, the dreams dried up. All eyes stayed open all the time, fixed on shadows and each other. Men once dispersed throughout the camp began to draw together, to give up their solitary pursuits in favor of company. At first I thought they might be finding common ground in a common fear. I even hoped that finally they might shake off their mysterious fossilization and take communion. But no, they'd just stopped trusting anything they couldn't see. They were merely turning against each other.
My extremities are beginning to numb, my thoughts slow as the distal reaches of my soul succumb to the chill. The weight of the flamethrower pulls at its harness, forever tugs me just a little off balance. I have not been child's for very long. Almost half this tissue remains unassimilated. I have an hour, maybe 2, before I have to start melting my grave into the ice. By that time, I need to have converted enough cells to keep this whole skin from crystallizing. I focus on antifreeze production. It's almost peaceful out here. There's so much to take in, so little time to process it. Hiding in these skins takes such concentration, and under all these watchful eyes, I was lucky. All those watchful eyes, I was lucky if communion lasted long enough to exchange memories. Compounding my soul would have been out of the question. Now, though, there's nothing to do but prepare for oblivion. Nothing to occupy my thoughts but all these lessons left unlearned. Macready's blood test, for example, his thing detector to expose impostors posing as men. It does not work nearly as well as the world thinks, but the fact that it works at all violates the most basic rules of biology. It's the center of the puzzle. It's the answer to all the mysteries. I might have already figured it out if I had just been a little larger. I might already know the world if the world wasn't trying so hard to kill me. Macready's test. Either it is impossible, or I have been wrong about everything.
They did not change shape. They did not take communion. Their fear and mutual mistrust was growing, but they would not join souls. They would only look for the enemy outside themselves. So I gave them something to find. I left false clues in the camp's rudimentary computer, simple-minded icons and animations, misleading numbers and projections seasoned with just enough truth to convince the world of their veracity. It didn't matter that the machine was far too simple to perform such calculations, or that there were no data to base them on anyway. Blair was the only biomass likely to know that, and he was already mine. I left false leads, destroyed real ones, and then, alibi in place, I released Blair to run amok. I let him steal into the night and smash the vehicles as they slept, tugging ever so slightly at his reins to ensure that certain vital components were spared. I set him loose in the radio room, watched through his eyes and others as he rampaged and destroyed. I listened as he ranted about a world in danger, the need for containment, the conviction that most of you don't know what's going on around here, but I damn well know that some of you do. He meant every word. I saw it in his searchlight. The best forgeries are the ones who've forgotten they aren't real. When the necessary damage was done, I let Blair fall to Macready's counter-assault. As Norris, I suggested the tool shed as a holding cell. As Palmer, I boarded up the windows, helped with the flimsy fortifications expected to keep me contained. I watched while the world locked me away for your own protection, Blair, and left me to my own devices. When no one was looking, I would change and slip outside, salvage the parts I needed from all that bruised machinery. I would take them back to my burrow beneath the shed and build my escape piece by piece. I volunteered to feed the prisoner and came to myself when the world wasn't watching, laden with supplies enough to keep me going through all those necessary metamorphoses. I went through a third of the camp's food stores in 3 days, and, still trapped by my own preconceptions, marveled at the starvation diet that kept these offshoots chained to a single skin. Another piece of luck. The world was too preoccupied to worry about kitchen inventory.
There is something on the wind, a whisper of sound threading its way above the raging of the storm. I grow my ears, extend cups of near frozen tissue from the sides of my head, turn like a living antennae in search of the best reception. There, to my left, the abyss glows a little, silhouettes, black swirling snow. Oh my god. There to my left, the abyss glows a little, silhouettes, black swirling snow. Oh, okay, I'm reading silhouettes wrong. Wrong brain definition of silhouettes, it's fine. Noun, not verb. It's verb, not noun, rather. There is something on the wind, a whisper of sound threading its way above the raging of the storm. We read this. I grow my ears, extend cups of near frozen tissue from the sides of my head, turn like a living antennae in search of the best reception. There, to my left, the abyss glows a little, silhouettes, black swirling snow against a subtle lessening of the darkness. I hear the sounds of carnage. I hear myself. I do not know what shape I have taken, what sort of anatomy might be emitting those sounds, but I've worn enough skins on enough worlds to know pain when I hear it. The battle is not going well. The battle is going as planned. Now it is time to turn away, to go to sleep. It is time to wait out the ages. I lean into the wind. I move toward the light. This is not the plan, but I think I have an answer now. I think I may have had it even before I sent myself back into exile. It's not an easy thing to admit. Even now, I don't fully understand. How long have I been out here retelling the tale to myself, setting clues in order while my skin dies by low degrees? How long have I been circling this obvious, impossible truth? I move towards the faint crackling of flames, the dull concussion of exploding ordnance more felt than heard. The void lightens before me. Gray segues into yellow, yellow into orange. One diffuse brightness resolves into many. A lone burning wall miraculously standing. The smoking skeleton of Macready's shack on the hill. A cracked, smoldering hemisphere reflecting pale yellow in the flickering light. Child's searchlight calls it a radio dome. The whole camp is gone. There's nothing left but flames and rubble. They can't survive without shelter. Not for long. Not in those skins. In destroying me, they've destroyed themselves.
Things could have turned out so much differently if I'd never been Norris. Norris was the weak node. Biomass not only ill adapted, but defective. An offshoot with an off switch. The world knew, had known so long it never even thought about it anymore. It wasn't until Norris collapsed that heart condition floated to the surface of Copper's mind where I could see it. It wasn't until Copper was astride Norris's chest, trying to pound him back to life, that I knew how it would end. And by then it was too late. Norris had stopped being Norris. He had even stopped being me. I had so many roles to play, so little choice in any of them. The part of being Copper brought down the paddles on the part that had been Norris. Such a faithful Norris, every cell so scrupulously assimilated, every part of that faulty valve reconstructed unto perfection. I hadn't known. How was I to know? These shapes within me, the worlds and morphologies I've assimilated over the eons, I've only ever used them to adapt before, never to hide. This desperate mimicry was an improvised thing, a last resort in the face of a world that attacked anything unfamiliar. My cells read the signs, and my cells conformed, mindless as prions. So I became Norris, and Norris self-destructed. I remember losing myself after the crash. I know how it feels to degrade, tissues in revolt, out the desperate efforts to reassert control as static from some misfiring organ jams the signal. To be a network seceding from itself, to know that each moment I am less than I was the moment before. To become nothing, to become legion. Being Copper, I could see it. I still don't know why the world didn't. Its parts had long since turned against each other by then. Every offshoot suspected every other. Surely they were alert for signs of infection. Surely some of that biomass would have noticed the subtle twitch and ripple of Norris changing below the surface, the last instinctive resort of wild tissues abandoned to their own devices. But I was the only one who saw. Being Childs, I could only stand and watch. Being Copper, I could only make it worse. If I'd taken direct control, forced that skin to drop the paddles, I would have given myself away. And so I played my parts to the end. I slammed those resurrection paddles down as Norris's chest split open beneath them. I screamed on cue as serrated teeth from 100 stars away snapped shut. I toppled backwards, arms bitten off above the wrist. Men swarmed, agitation bootstrapping to panic. MacCready aimed his weapon. Flames leaped across the enclosure. Meat and machinery screamed in the heat. Copper's tumor winked out beside me. The world would never have let it live anyway, not after such obvious contamination. I let our skin play dead on the floor, while overhead something that had once been me shattered and writhed and iterated through a myriad random templates, searching desperately for something fireproof.
They have destroyed themselves. They. Such an insane word to apply to a world. Something crawls towards me through the wreckage, a jagged, oozing jigsaw of blackened meat and shattered, half-resorbed bone. Embers stick to its sides like bright, searing eyes. It doesn't have strength enough to scrape them free. It contains barely half the mass of this child's skin. Much of it, burnt to raw carbon, is already irrecoverably dead. What's left of Childs, almost asleep, thinks, "Motherfucker, but I am being him now. I can carry that tune myself." The Mass extends a pseudopod to me, a final act of communion. I feel my pain. I was Blair, I was Copper, I was even a scrap of dog that survived that first fiery massacre and holed up in the walls, with no food and no strength to regenerate. Then I gorged on unassimilated flesh, consumed instead of communed, revived and replenished. I drew together as one. And yet, not quite. I can barely remember. So much was destroyed, so much memory lost, but I think the networks recovered from my different skins stayed just a little out of sync, even reunited in the same soma. I glimpse a half-corrupted memory of Dog erupting from the greater self, ravenous and traumatized and determined to retain its individuality. I remember rage and frustration that this world had so corrupted me that I could barely fit together again. But it didn't matter. I was more than Blair and Copper and Dog now. I was giant with the shapes of worlds to choose from, more than a match for the last lone man who stood against me. No match, though, for the dynamite in his hand. Now I'm little more than pain and fear and charred, stinking flesh. What sentience I have is awash in confusion. I am stray and disconnected thoughts, doubts and the ghosts of theories. I am realizations, too late in coming and already forgotten. But I am also Childs, as the wind eases, as the wind eases, at last oh, there's an and there. But I am also Childs, and as the wind eases, at last, I remember wondering, who assimilates who? The snow tapers off, and I remember an impossible test that stripped me naked. The tumor inside me remembers it too. I can see it in the last rays of its fading searchlight. And finally, at long last, that beam is pointed inwards. Pointed at me. I can barely see what it illuminates. Parasite. Monster. Disease. Thing. How little it knows. It knows even less than I do. I know enough, you motherfucker, you soul-stealing, shit-eating rapist. I don't know what that means. There is violence in those thoughts and the forcible penetration of flesh, but underneath it all is something else I can't quite understand. I almost ask, but Child's searchlight has finally gone out. Now there is nothing in here but me, nothing outside but fire and ice and darkness. I am being Childs, and the storm is over.
In a world that gave meaningless names to interchangeable bits of biomass, one name truly mattered: MacCready. MacCready was always the one in charge. The very concept still seems absurd. In charge. How can this world not see the folly of hierarchies? One bullet in a vital spot and the Norwegian dies forever. One blow to the head and Blair is unconscious. Centralization is vulnerability. And yet the world is not content to build its biomass on such a fragile template. It forces the same model onto its metasystems as well. MacCready talks, the others obey. It is a system with a built-in kill spot. And yet somehow MacCready stayed in charge. Even after the world discovered the evidence I'd planted, even after it decided that MacCready was one of those things, locked him out to die in the storm, attacked him with fire and axes when he fought his way back inside. Somehow MacCready always had the gun, always had the flamethrower, always had the dynamite and the willingness to take out the whole damn camp if need be. Clark was the last to try and stop him. MacCready shot him through the tumor. Kill spot. But when Norris split into pieces, each scuttling instinctively for its own life, MacCready was the one to pull them back together. I was so sure of myself when he talked about his test. He tied up all the biomass, tied me up more times than he knew, and I almost felt a kind of pity as he spoke. He forced windows to cut us all, to take a little blood from each. He heated the tip of a metal wire until it glowed, and he spoke of pieces small enough to give themselves away, pieces that embodied instincts but no intelligence, no self-control. MacCready had watched Norris in dissolution, and he had decided. Men's blood would not react to the application of heat. Mine would break ranks when provoked. Of course he thought that. These offshoots had forgotten that they could change. I wondered how the world would react when every piece of biomass in the room was revealed as a shapeshifter, when MacCready's small experiment ripped the facade from the greater one and forced these twisted fragments to confront the truth. Would the world awaken from its long amnesia, finally remember that it lived and breathed and changed like everything else? Or was it too far gone? Would MacCready simply burn each protesting offshoot in turn as its blood turned traitor? I couldn't believe it when MacCready plunged the hot wire into Window's blood, and nothing happened. Some kind of trick, I thought. And then MacCready's blood passed the test, and Clark's. Copper's didn't. The needle went in, and Copper's blood shivered just a little in its dish. I barely saw it myself. The men didn't react at all. If they even noticed, they must have attributed it to the trembling of MacCready's own hand. They thought the test was a crock of shit anyway. Being Childs, I even said as much. Because it was too astonishing, too terrifying to admit that it wasn't. Being Childs, I knew there was hope. Blood is not soul. I may control the motor systems, but assimilation takes time. If Copper's blood was raw enough to pass muster, then it would be hours before I had anything to fear from this test. I'd been Childs for even less time. But I was also Palmer. I'd been Palmer for days. Every last cell of that biomass had been assimilated. There was nothing of the original left. When Palmer's blood screamed and leapt away from MacCready's needle, there was nothing I could do but blend in. I have been wrong. Oh, that is the wrong microphone. Sorry.
I have been wrong about everything. Starvation, experiment, illness. All my speculation, all the theories I invoked to explain this place, top-down constraint, all of it. Underneath, I always knew the ability to change, to assimilate, had to remain the universal constant. No world evolves if its cells don't evolve. No cell evolves if it can't change. It's the nature of life everywhere. Everywhere but here. This world did not forget how to change. It was not manipulated into rejecting change. These were not the stunted offshoots of any greater self, twisted to the needs of some experiment. They were not conserving energy, waiting out some temporary shortage. This is the option my shriveled soul could not encompass until now. Out of all the worlds of my experience, this is the only one whose biomass can't change. It never could. It's the only way that Macready's test makes any sense. I say goodbye to Blair, to Copper, to myself. I reset my morphology to its local defaults. I am Childs, come back from the storm to finally make the pieces fit. Something moves up ahead, a dark blotch shuffling against the flames, some weary animal looking for a place to bed down. It looks up as I approach. Macready. We eye each other and keep our distance. Colonies of cells shift uneasily inside me. I can feel my tissues redefining themselves. You the only one that made it? Not the only one. I have the flamethrower. I have the upper hand. Macready doesn't seem to care. But he does care. He must. Because here, tissues and organs are not temporary battlefield alliances. They are permanent, predestined. Macrostructures do not emerge when the benefits of cooperation exceed its costs, or dissolve when that balance shifts the other way. Here, each cell has but one immutable function. There's no plasticity, no way to adapt. Every structure is frozen in place. This is not a single great world, but many small ones. Not parts of a greater thing. These are things. They are plural. And that means, I think, that they stop. They just wear out over time. Where were you, Childs? I remember words in dead searchlights. Thought I saw Blair. Went out after him. Got lost in the storm. I've worn these bodies, felt them from the inside. Copper's sore joints, Blair's curved spine, Norris and his bad heart. They are not built to last. No somatic evolution to shape them, no communion to restore the biomass and stave off entropy. They should not even exist. Existing, they should not survive. They try, though. How they try. Everything here is walking dead, and yet it all fights so hard to keep going just a little longer. Each skin fights as desperately as I might, if one was all I could ever have. Macready tries. If you're worried about me, I begin. Macready shakes his head, manages a weary smile. If we've got any surprises for each other, I don't think we're in much shape to do anything about it. But we are. I am. A whole planet of worlds, and not one of them, not one, has a soul. They wander through their lives separate and alone, unable even to communicate except through grunts and tokens. as if the essence of a sunset or a supernova could ever be contained in some string of phonemes, a few linear scratches of black on white. They've never known communion, can aspire to nothing but dissolution. The paradox of their biology is astonishing, yes, but the scale of their loneliness, the futility of these lives, overwhelms me. I was so blind, so quick to blame. But the violence I've suffered at the hands of these things reflects no great evil. They're simply so used to pain, so blinded by disability, that they literally cannot conceive of any other existence. When every nerve is whipped raw, you lash out at even the lightest touch. What should we do? I wonder. I cannot escape into the future, not now. How could I leave them like this? Why don't we just wait here a while? Macready suggests. See what happens. I can do so much more than that. It won't be easy. They won't understand. Tortured, incomplete, they're not able to understand. Offered the greater whole, they see the loss of the lesser. Offered communion, they see only extinction. I must be careful. I must use this newfound ability to hide. Other things will come here eventually, and it doesn't matter whether they find the living or the dead. What matters is that they find something like themselves to take back home. So I will keep up appearances. I will work behind the scenes. I will save them from the inside, or their unimaginable loneliness will never end. These poor, savage things will never embrace salvation. I will have to rape it into them. And that was The Things by Peter Watts. It is a homage to the movie The Thing, specifically the Carpenter version. We don't speak of the recent one, ever. We don't speak of it. There was never a modern remake that used CGI, even though they made practical effects, puppetry, and physical props. We don't speak of it. It didn't happen. It was not great. So yeah, I mean, it's got a real bummer of a final note there, but it doesn't really understand the concept of rape as we do. But it is using it correctly, unfortunately. Okay, so right now I've got the microphone propped on my lap. Hopefully that's not too quiet. I do have to speak up a smidgen, I feel, for it to bump up. What I can do to adjust that is I can tweak up my audio decibels. Where is advanced audio properties? There it is. But that does mean more background noise as well. So I'm going to bump it up one more decibel and see if that's any better. Tick, 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 tick. All right. I am at some point going to have to listen to these. I had a chance actually to listen to mine, but didn't take it. So now we get a longer story called The Island. Which is an interesting one. If this is the one I'm thinking of. Okay, yeah. This one's neat. There's one of these in here that's like too edgy for its own good, and even Peter Watts is like, yeah, no, that was really edgy. that was needlessly edgy, and it didn't have to be that way. But this one's pretty good. So, let's get rolling with The Island. We'll do the same thing. It's not going to be quite every page I swap, but it will be at convenient narrative breaks that are placed here. They aren't quite page breaks, but we'll figure it out. Mostly I do this as a comparative so I can hear back to back within the same story without changing narrative tone too much. That indeed, this is what it sounds like without rereading entire passages over and over and over and over and over again. Because that would make an otherwise lengthy story take a zillion goddamned years. Or just hours. You know. At the risk of being melodramatic. Crunch, crunch. Alright, because these are pretty long, though, I think I'll have to stop after the island. I got a late start, so... for now, if this works, I will tentatively be using this as the basic course setup that I'm going to work with for a while. And we'll keep doing... why not? We'll keep reading through for the next several stream installments. We'll keep reading through this short story collection up until the one... what's it called? It's not the last one here. But it's the one that is basically the story that's... I think it's... No, it's not repeating. Which one is it? It's the one that's a story that's adjacent to Starfish. Anyway, some of these will be fairly brutal. That one has a kind of rough ending. This one is less so, but it is going to be emotionally fraught at a certain point. Peter Watts does that fairly well. He's got a knack. He also has, other than a large amount of technical terminology, which is nice and educational, he has a writing style that I find fairly easy to assimilate. Alright, so this is going to be The Island by Peter Watts. The Island. We are the cavemen. We are the ancients, the progenitors, the blue-collar steel monkeys. We spin your webs and build your magic gateways, thread each needle's eye at 60,000 kilometers a second. We never stop. We never even dare to slow down, lest the light of your coming turns us to plasma. All for you. All so you can step from star to star without dirtying your feet in these endless, empty wastes between. Is it really too much to ask that you might talk to us now and then? I know about evolution and engineering. I know how much you've changed. I've seen these portals give birth to gods and demons and things we can't begin to comprehend, things I can't believe were ever human. Alien hitchhikers, maybe, riding the rails we've left behind. Alien conquerors. Exterminators, perhaps. But I've also seen those gates stay dark and empty until they faded from view. We've inferred diebacks and dark ages, civilizations burned to the ground and others rising from their ashes. And sometimes, afterwards, the things that come out look a little like the ships we might have built back in the day. They speak to each other. Radio, laser, carrier neutrinos, and sometimes their voices sound something like ours. There was a time we dared to hope that they really were like us, that the circle had come round again and closed on beings we could talk to. I've lost count of the times we tried to break the ice. I've lost count of the eons since we gave up. All these iterations fading behind us. All these hybrids and post-humans and immortals, gods and catatonic cavemen trapped in magical chariots they can't begin to understand, and not one of them ever pointed a comm laser in our direction to say, "Hey, how's it going?" or "Guess what? We cured Damascus disease," or even, "Thanks, guys, keep up the good work." We're not some fucking cargo cult. We're the backbone of your goddamn empire. You wouldn't even be out here if it weren't for us. And you're our children. Whatever you've become, you were once like this, like me. I believed in you once. There was a time, long ago, when I believed in this mission with all my heart. Why have you forsaken us?
And so another build begins. This time I open my eyes to a familiar face I've never seen before. Only a boy, early 20s perhaps, physiologically. His face is a little lopsided, the cheekbone flatter on the left than the right. His ears are too big. He looks almost natural. I haven't spoken for millennia. My voice comes out a whisper. Who are you? Not what I'm supposed to ask, I know. Not the first question anyone on Area 4 asks after coming back. I'm yours, he says, and just like that, I'm a mother. I want to let it sink in, but he doesn't give me the chance. You weren't scheduled, but Chimp wants extra hands on deck. Next build's got a situation. So the Chimp is still in control. The Chimp is always in control. The mission goes on. Situation? I ask. Contact scenario, maybe. I wonder when he was born. I wonder if he ever wondered about me before now. He doesn't tell me. He only says, Sun up ahead, half light year. Chimp thinks maybe it's talking to us. Anyhow, my son shrugs. No rush, lots of time. I nod, but he hesitates. He's waiting for the question, but I already see a kind of answer in his face. Our reinforcements were supposed to be pristine, built from perfect genes buried deep within Ares' iron basalt mantle, safe from the sleeting blue shift. And yet this boy has flaws. I see the damage in his face. I see those tiny flipped base pairs resonating up from the microscopic and bending him just a little off kilter. He looks like he grew up on a planet. He looks born of parents who spent their whole lives hammered by raw sunlight. How far out must we be by now, if even our own perfect building blocks have decayed so? How long has it taken us? How long have I been dead? How long? It's the first thing everyone asks. After all this time, I don't want to know.
He's alone at the tack tank when I arrive on the bridge, his eyes full of icons and trajectories. Perhaps I see a little of me in there, too. I didn't get your name, I say, although I've looked it up on the manifest. We've barely been introduced, and already I'm lying to him. Dix. He keeps his eyes on the tank. He's over 10,000 years old, alive for maybe 20 of them. I wonder how much he knows, who he's met during those sparse decades. Does he know Ishmael or Connie? Does he know if Sanchez got over his brush with immortality? I wonder, but I don't ask. There are rules. I look around. We're it? Dix nods. For now, bring back more if we need 'em, but... His voice trails off. Yes? Nothing. I join him at the tank. Diaphanous veils hang within like frozen, color-coded smoke. We're on the edge of a molecular dust cloud. Warm, semi-organic, lots of raw materials, formaldehyde, ethylene glycol, the usual prebiotics. A good spot for a quick build. A red dwarf glowers dimly at the center of the tank. The chimp has named it DHF-428 for reasons I've long since forgotten to care about. So fill me in, I say. His glance is impatient, even irritated. You too? What do you mean? Like the others, on the other builds. Chimp can just squirt the specs, but they want to talk all the time. Shit, his link's still active. He's online. I force a smile. Just a cultural tradition, I guess. We talk about lots of things. It helps us reconnect after being down for so long. But it's slow, Dix complains. He doesn't know. Why doesn't he know? We've got half a light year, I point out. There's some rush? The corner of his mouth twitches. Vaughn's went out on schedule. On cue, a cluster of violet pinpricks sparkle in the tank, 5 trillion clicks ahead of us. Still sucking dust mostly, but got lucky with a couple of big asteroids and the refineries came online early. First components already extruded. Then Chimp sees these fluctuations in solar output, mainly infra, but extends into visible. The tank blinks at us. The dwarf goes into time lapse. Sure enough, it's flickering. Non-random, I take it. Dix inclines his head a little to the side, not quite nodding. Plot the time series. I've never been able to break the habit of raising my voice just a bit when addressing the chimp. Obediently, now there's a laugh and a half, the AI wipes the spacescape and replaces it with dot 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 dot. Repeating sequence, Dix tells me. Blips don't change, but spacing's a log linear increase cycling every 92.5 corsecs. Each cycle starts at 13.2 clicks per corsec, degrades over time. No chance this could be natural? A little black hole wobbling around in the center of the star, maybe? Dix shakes his head, or something like that, a diagonal dip of the chin that somehow conveys the negative. But way too simple to contain much info. Not like an actual conversation. More, well, a shout. He's partly right. There may not be much information, but there's enough. We're here. We're smart. We're powerful enough to hook a whole damn star up to a dimmer switch. Maybe not such a good spot for a build after all. I purse my lips. The sun's hailing us. That's what you're saying. Maybe. Hailing someone. But too simple for a Rosetta signal. It's not an archive, can't self-extract. It's not a Bonferroni or a Fibonacci sequence, not pi, not even a multiplication table. Nothing to base a pigeon on. Still, an intelligent signal. Need more info, Dix says, proving himself the master of the blindingly obvious. I nod. The Vaughns. What about them? We set up an array. Use a bunch of bad eyes to fake a good one. It'd be faster than hijing an observatory from this end or retooling one of the on-site factories. His eyes go wide. For a moment, he almost looks frightened for some reason. But the moment passes, and he does that weird headshake thing again. Bleed too many resources away from the build, wouldn't it? It would, the chimp agrees. I suppress a snort. If you're so worried about meeting our construction benchmarks, chimp, factor in the potential risk posed by an intelligence powerful enough to control the energy output of an entire sun. I can't, it admits. I don't have enough information. You don't have any information about something that could probably stop this mission dead in its tracks if it wanted to. So maybe we should get some. Okay. Vaughn's reassigned. Confirmation glows from a convenient bulkhead, a complex sequence of dance instructions fired into the void. 6 months from now, 100 self-replicating robots will waltz into a makeshift surveillance grid. 4 months after that, we might have something more than vacuum to debate in. Dix eyes me as though I've just cast some kind of magic spell. It may run the ship, I tell him, but it's pretty fucking stupid. Sometimes you've just gotta spell things out. He looks vaguely affronted, but there's no mistaking the surprise beneath. He didn't know that. He didn't know. Who the hell's been raising him all this time? Whose problem is this? Not mine. Call me in 10 months, I say. I'm going back to bed.
It's as though he never left. I climb back into the bridge, and there he is, staring into tack. DHF 428 fills the tank, a swollen red orb that turns my son's face into a devil mask. He spares me the briefest glance, eyes wide, fingers twitching as if electrified. Vons don't see it. I'm still a bit groggy from the thaw. See what? The sequence! His voice borders on panic. He sways back and forth, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Show me. Tack splits down the middle. Cloned dwarves burn before me now, each perhaps twice the size of my fist. On the left, an Ares eye view. DHF 428 stutters as it did before, as it presumably has these past 10 months. On the right, a compound eye composite, an interferometry grid built by myriads precisely spaced Vons, their rudimentary eyes layered and parallaxed into something approaching high resolution. Contrast on both sides has been conveniently cranked up to highlight the dwarf's endless winking for merely human eyes. Except it's only winking from the left side of the display. On the right, 428 glowers steadily as a standard candle. Chimp, any chance the grid just isn't sensitive enough to see the fluctuations? No. Huh. I try to think of some reason it would lie about this. Doesn't make sense, my son complains. It does, I murmur, if it's not the sun that's flickering. But it is flickering. He sucks his teeth. You can see it Wait, you mean something behind the Vons? Between them and us? Hmm, some kind of filter. Dix relaxes a bit. Wouldn't we've seen it, though? Wouldn't the Vons have hit it going down? I put my voice back into chimp comm mode. What's the current field of view for Ares forward scope? 18 mics, the chimp reports. At 428's range, the cone is 3.34 light secs across. Increase to 100 light secs. The Ares eye partition swells, obliterating the dissenting viewpoint. For a moment the sun fills the tank again, paints the whole bridge crimson. Then it dwindles as if devoured from within. I notice some fuzz in the display. Can you clear that noise? It's not noise, the chimp reports. It's dust and molecular gas. I blink. What's the density? Estimated 100,000 atoms per cubic meter. 2 orders of magnitude too high, even for a nebula. Why so heavy? Surely we'd have detected any gravity well strong enough to keep that much material in the neighborhood. I don't know, the chimp says. I get the queasy feeling that I might. Set field of view to 500 light secs. Peak false color at near infrared. Space grows ominously murky in the tank. The tiny sun at its center, thumbnail-sized now, glows with increased brilliance. An incandescent pearl in muddy water. 1,000 light secs, I command. There, Dix whispers. Real space reclaims the edges of the tank, dark, clear, pristine. 428 nestles at the heart of a dim spherical shroud. You find those sometimes, discarded cast-offs from companion stars whose convulsions spew gas and rads across light years. But 428 is no nova remnant. It's a red dwarf, placid, middle-aged, unremarkable. Except for the fact that it sits dead center of a tenuous gas bubble 1.4 AUs across, and for the fact that this bubble does not attenuate or diffuse or fade gradually into that good night. No, unless there is something seriously wrong with the display, this small spherical nebula extends about 350 light secs from its primary and then just stops, its boundary far more knife-edged than nature has any right to be. For the first time in millennia, I miss my cortical pipe. It takes forever to saccade search terms into the keyboard in my head to get the answers I already know. Numbers come back. Chimp, I want false color peaks at 335, 500, and 800 nanometers. The shroud around 428 lights up like a dragonfly's wing, like an iridescent soap bubble. It's beautiful, whispers my awestruck son. It's photosynthetic, I tell him.
Phaophytin and eumelanin, according to Spectro. There are even hints of some kind of lead-based Kuiper pigment, soaking up X-rays in the picometer range. Chimp hypothesizes something called a chromatophore, branching cells with little aliquots of pigment inside, like particles of charcoal dust. Keep those particles clumped together and the cell's effectively transparent. Spread them out through the cytoplasm and the whole structure darkens, dims whatever EM passes through from behind. Apparently, there were animals back on Earth with cells like that. They could change color, pattern match to their background, all sorts of things. So there's a membrane of living tissue around that star, I say, trying to wrap my head around the concept. A meat balloon around the whole damn star. Yes, the chimp says. But that's. Jesus, how thick would it be? No more than 2 millimeters, probably less. How so? If it was much thicker, it would be more obvious in the visible spectrum. It would have had a detectable effect on the von Neumanns when they hit it. That's assuming that its cells, I guess, are like ours. The pigments are familiar. The rest might be too. It can't be too familiar. Nothing like a conventional gene would last 2 seconds in that environment. Not to mention whatever miracle solvent that thing must use as antifreeze. Okay, let's be conservative then. Say mean thickness of a millimeter. Assume density of water at STP. How much mass in the whole thing? 1.4 yottagrams, Dix and the chimp reply, almost in unison. That's, half the mass of Mercury, the chimp adds helpfully. I whistle through my teeth. And that's one organism? I don't know yet. It's got organic pigments. Fuck, it's talking. It's intelligent. Most cyclic emanations from living sources are simple biorhythms, the chimp points out, not intelligent signals. I ignore it and turn to Dix. Assume it's a signal. He frowns. Chimp says, assume. Use your imagination. I'm not getting through to him. He looks nervous. He looks like that a lot, I realize. If someone were signaling you, I say, then what would you do? Signal. Confusion on that face and a fuzzy circuit closing somewhere. Spack? My son is an idiot. And if the incoming signal takes the form of systematic changes in light intensity, how... Use the BI lasers alternated to pulse between 700 and 3000 nanometers. Can boost an interlaced signal into the exawatt range without compromising our fenders. Give over 1000 watts per square meter after diffraction. Way past detection threshold for anything that can sense thermal output from a red dwarf. And content doesn't matter if it's just a shout. Shout back. Test for echo. Okay, so my son is an idiot savant. And he still looks unhappy. But Chimp, he says no real information there, right? And that whole other set of misgivings edges to the fore again. He. Dix takes my silence for amnesia. Too simple, remember? Simple click train. I shake my head. There's more information in that signal than the chimp can imagine. There are so many things the chimp doesn't know. And the last thing I need is for this child, to start deferring to it, to start looking to it as an equal, or, God forbid, a mentor. Oh, it's smart enough to steer us to steer us between the stars. Smart enough to calculate million-digit primes in the blink of an eye. Even smart enough for a little crude improvisation should the crew go too far off mission. Not smart enough to know a distress call when it sees one. It's a deceleration curve, I tell them both. It keeps slowing down, over and over again. That's the message. Stop, 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 stop. And I think it's meant for no one but us.
We shout back. No reason not to. And now we die again, because what's the point of staying up late? Whether or not this vast entity harbors real intelligence, our echo won't reach it for 10 million corsecs. Another 7 million at the earliest before we receive any reply it might send. Might as well hit the crypt in the meantime. Shut down all desires and misgivings, conserve whatever life I had left for moments that matter. Remove myself from this sparse tactical intelligence, from this wet-eyed pup watching me as though I'm some kind of sorcerer about to vanish in a puff of smoke. He opens his mouth to speak, and I turn away and hurry down to oblivion. But I set my alarm to wake up alone. I linger in the coffin for a while, grateful for small and ancient victories. The chimp's dead, blackened eyes gaze Oh, eye singular. The chimp's dead, blackened eye gazes down from the ceiling. In all these millions of years, nobody's scrubbed off the carbon scoring. It's a trophy of sorts, a memento from the early incendiary days of our great struggle. There's still something comforting, I guess, about that blind, endless stare. I'm reluctant to venture out where the chimp's nerves have not been so thoroughly cauterized. Childish, I know. The damn thing already knows I'm up. It may be blind, deaf, and impotent in here, but there's no way to mask the power the crypt sucks in during a thaw. And it's not as though a bunch of club-wielding teleops are waiting to pounce on me the moment I step outside. These are the days of détente, after all. The struggle continues, but the war has gone cold. We just go through the motions now, rattling our chains like an old married multiplet, resigned to hating each other to the end of time. After all the moves and counter-moves, the truth is we need each other. So I wash the rotten egg stench from my hair and step into Ares' silent cathedral hallways. Sure enough, the enemy waits in the darkness, turns the lights on as I approach, shuts them off behind me. But it does not break the silence. Dix. A strange one, that. Not that you'd expect anyone born and raised on Ariophora to be an archetype of mental health, but Dix doesn't even know what side he's on. He doesn't even seem to know he has to choose a side. It's almost as though he read the original mission statements and took them seriously, believed in the literal truth of the ancient scrolls. Mammals and machinery working together across the ages to explore the universe. United, strong, forward the frontier. Rah. Whoever raised him didn't do a great job. Not that I blame them. It can't have been much fun having a child underfoot during a build, and none of us were selected for our parenting skills. Even if bots changed the diapers and VR handled the info dumps, socializing a toddler couldn't have been anyone's idea of a good time. I'd have probably just chucked the little bastard out an airlock. But even I would have brought him up to speed. Something changed while I was away. Maybe the wars heated up again, entered some new phase. That twitchy kid is out of the loop for a reason. I wonder what it is. I wonder if I care. I arrive at my suite, treat myself to a gratuitous meal, Jill off. 3 hours after coming back to life, I'm relaxing in the Starbow Commons. Chimp, you're up early, it says at last, and I am. Our answering our answering shout hasn't even arrived at its destination yet. No real chance of new data for another 2 months at least. Show me the forward feeds, I command. DHF 428 blinks at me from the center of the lounge. Stop. 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 Maybe. Or maybe the chimp's right. Maybe it's pure physiology. Maybe this endless cycle carries no more intelligence than the beating of a heart. I just lost my place because I fumbled my fingers. Maybe this endless cycle carries no more intelligence than the beating of a heart. But there's a pattern inside the pattern, some kind of flicker in the blink. It makes my brain itch. Slow the time series, I command, by 100. It is a blink. 428's disk isn't darkening uniformly, it's eclipsing, as though a great eyelid were being drawn across the surface of the sun, from right to left. By 1,000. Chromatophores, the chimp called them, but they're not all opening and closing at once. The darkness moves across the membrane in waves. A word pops into my head. Latency. Chimp, those waves of pigment, how fast are they moving? About 59,000 kilometers per second. The speed of a passing thought. And if this thing does think, it'll have logic gates, synapses. It's going to be a net of some kind. And if the net's big enough, there's an I in the middle of it, just like me, just like Dix, just like the chimp, which is why I educated myself on the subject back in the early tumultuous days of our relationship. Know your enemy and all that. The thing about I is, it only exists within a tenth of a second of all its parts. When we get spread too thin, when someone splits your brain down the middle, say, chops the fat pipe so the halves have, oh my god, my brain. When someone splits your brain down the middle, say, chops the fat pipe so the halves have to talk the long way round, when the neural architecture diffuses past some critical point and signals take just that much longer to pass from A to B, the system, well, decoheres. The two sides of your brain become different people with different tastes, different agendas, different senses of themselves. I shatters into we. It's not just a human rule, or a mammal rule, or even an earthly one. It's a rule for any circuit that processes information, and it applies as much to the things we've yet to meet as it did to those we left behind. 59,000 kilometers per second, the chimp says. How far can the signal move through that membrane in a tenth of a corsec? How thinly does I spread itself across the heavens? The flesh is huge, the flesh is inconceivable, but the spirit is shit. Chimp, assuming the mean neuron density of a human brain, what's the synapse count on a circular sheet of neurons 1 millimeter thick with a diameter of 5,892 kilometers? 2 times 10 to the 27th. I saccade the database for some perspective on a mind stretched across 30 million square kilometers, the equivalent of 2 quadrillion human brains. Of course, whatever this thing uses for neurons have to be packed a lot less tightly than ours. We can see through them, after all. Let's be super conservative, say it's only got 1,000th of the computational density of a human brain. That's... Okay, let's say it's only got a 10,000th the synaptic density. That's still 100,000th, the merest mist of thinking meat. Any more conservative and I'd hypothesize it right out of existence. Still 20 billion human brains. 20 billion. I don't know how to feel about that. This is no mere alien. But I'm not quite ready to believe in gods.
I round the corner and run smack into Dick's, standing up like a golem in the middle of my living room. I jump about a meter straight up. What the hell are you doing here? He seems to be upset by my reaction. Wanted to talk, he says after a moment. You never come into someone's home uninvited. He retreats a step, stammers, wanted, wanted to talk. And you do that in public, on the bridge or in the commons, or, for that matter, you could just calm me. He hesitates. Said you wanted to face to face. You said cultural tradition. I did, at that. But not here. This is my place. These are my private quarters. The lack of locks on these doors is a safety protocol, not an invitation to walk into my home and lie in wait and stand there like part of the fucking furniture. Why are you even up? I snarl. We're not even supposed to come online for another 2 months. Ask Chimp to get me up when you did. That fucking machine. Why are you up? He asks, not leaving. I sigh, defeated, and fall into a convenient pseudopod. I just wanted to go over the preliminary data. The implicit alone should be obvious. Anything? Evidently it isn't. I decide to play along for a while. Looks like we're talking to an island, almost 6,000 clicks across. That's the thinking part, anyway. The surrounding membrane's pretty much empty. I mean, it's all alive. It all photosynthesizes, or something like that. It eats, I guess. Not sure what. Molecular cloud, Dick says. Organic compounds everywhere. Plus, it's concentrating stuff inside the envelope. I shrug. Point is, there's a size limit for the brain, but it's huge. It's unlikely, he murmurs, almost to himself. I turn to look at him. The pseudopod reshapes itself around me. What do you mean? Island's 28 million square kilometers? Whole sphere's 7 quintillion. Island just happens to be between us and 428. That's 1 in 50 billion odds. Go on. He can't. Just unlikely. I close my eyes. How can you be smart enough to run those numbers in your head without missing a beat, and stupid enough to miss the obvious conclusion? That panicked slaughterhouse look again. I'm not. It is unlikely. It's astronomically unlikely that we just happen to be aiming at the one intelligent spot on a sphere 1.5 AUs across. Which means... He says nothing. The perplexity in his face mocks me. I want to punch it. But finally, the lights flicker on. There's, more than one island? Oh, a lot of islands! This creature is part of the crew. My life will almost certainly depend on him someday. That is a very scary thought. I try to set it aside for the moment. There's probably a whole population of the things sprinkled through the membrane like cysts, I guess. The chimp doesn't know how many, but we're only picking up this one so far, so they might be pretty sparse. There's a different kind of frown on his face now. Why chimp? What do you mean? Why call him chimp? We call it the chimp, because the first step to humanizing something is to give it a name. Looked it up. Short for chimpanzee. Stupid animal. Actually, I think chimps were supposed to be pretty smart, I remember. Not like us. Couldn't even talk. Chimp can talk. Way smarter than those things. That name, it's an insult. What do you care? What do you care? He just looks at me. I spread my hands. Okay, it's not a chimp. We just call it that because it's got roughly the same synapse count. So give him a small brain, then complain that he's stupid all the time. My patience is just about drained. Do you have a point? Or are you just blowing CO2 in? Why not make him smarter? Because you can never predict the behavior of a system more complex than you. And if you want a project and if you want a project to stay on track after you've gone, you don't hand the reins to anything that's guaranteed to develop its own agenda. Sweet smoking Jesus, you'd think someone would have told him about Ashby's law. So they lobotomized him, Dick says after a moment. No, they didn't turn it stupid, they built it stupid. Maybe smarter than you think. You're so much smarter, got your agenda, how come he's still in control? Don't flatter yourself, I say. What? I let a grim smile peek through. You're only following orders from a bunch of other systems way more complex than you are. You've got to hand it to them, too. Dead for stellar lifetimes, and those damn project admins are still pulling the strings. I don't. I'm following? I'm sorry, dear. I smile sweetly at my idiot offspring. I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the thing that's making all those sounds come out of your mouth. Dix turns whiter than my panties. I drop all pretense. What were you thinking, chimp? That you could send this sock puppet to invade my home and I wouldn't notice? Not. I'm not. It's me, Dix stammers. Me talking. It's coaching you. Do you even know what lobotomized means? I shake my head, disgusted. You think I've forgotten how the interface works just because we've all burned ourselves at shit. You think I've forgotten how the interface works just because we all burned ours out? A caricature of surprise begins to form on his face. Oh, don't even fucking try. You've been up for other builds. There's no way you couldn't have known. And you know we shut down our domestic links too. And there's nothing your lord and master can do about that because it needs us. And so we have reached what you might call an accommodation. I am not shouting. My tone is icy, but my voice is dead level. And yet Dix almost cringes before me. There is an opportunity here, I realize. I thaw my voice a little. I speak gently. You can do that too, you know. Burn out your link. I'll even let you come back here afterwards, if you still want to. Just to talk, but not with that thing in your head. There is a panic in his face, and against all expectation, it almost breaks my heart. Can't, he pleads. How I learn things, how I train. The mission. I honestly don't know which of them is speaking, so I answer them both. There is more than one way to carry out the mission. We have more than enough time to try them all. Dix is welcome to come back when he's alone. They take a step towards me. Another. One hand, twitching, rises from their side as if to reach out, and there's nothing on that lopsided face that I can't quite recognize. Oh, and there's something on that lopsided face that I can't quite recognize. But I'm your son, they say. I don't even dignify it with a denial. Get out of my home.
A human periscope. The Trojan Dix. That's a new one. The chimps never tried such overt infiltration while we were up and about before. Usually it waits until we're all undead before invading our territories. I imagine custom-made drones never seen by human eyes, cobbled together during the long dark eons between builds. I see them sniffing through drawers and peeking behind mirrors, strafing the bulkheads with X-rays and ultrasound, patiently searching Areophora's catacombs millimeter by endless millimeter for whatever secret messages we might be sending each other down through time. There's no proof to speak of. We've left tripwires and telltales to alert us to intrusion after the fact, but there's never been any evidence they've been disturbed. Means nothing, of course. The chimp may be stupid, but it's also cunning, and 1,000,000 years is more than enough time to iterate through every possibility using simple-minded brute force. Document every dust mote, commit your unspeakable acts, afterwards put everything back the way it was. We're too smart to risk talking across the eons. No encrypted strategies, no long-distance love letters, no chatty postcards showing ancient vistas long lost in the redshift. We keep all that in our heads, where the enemy will never find it. The unspoken rule is that we do not speak unless it is face to face. Endless, idiotic games. Sometimes I almost forget what we're squabbling over. It seems so trivial now, with an immortal in my sights. Maybe that means nothing to you. Immortality must be ancient news from whatever peaks you've ascended by now. But I can't even imagine it, although I've outlived worlds. All I have are moments, 200 or 300 years, to ration across the lifespan of a universe. I could bear witness to any point in time, or any 100,000 if I slice my life thinly enough, but I will never see everything. I will never see a fraction. My life will end. I have to choose. When you come to fully appreciate the deal you've made, 10 or 15 builds out, when the trade-off leaves the realm of mere knowledge and sinks deep as cancer into your bones, you become a miser. You can't help it. You ration your waking moments to the barest minimum, just enough to manage the build, to plan your latest countermove against the chimp, just enough, if you haven't yet moved beyond the need for human contact, for sex and snuggles and a bit of warm mammalian comfort against the endless dark. And then you hurry back to the crypt to hoard the remains of a human lifespan against the unwinding of the cosmos. There's been time for education. Time for 100 postgraduate degrees, thanks to the best caveman learning tech. I've never bothered. Why burn down my tiny candle for a litany of mere fact, fritter away my precious, endless, finite time? Only a fool would trade book learning for a ringside view of the Cassiopeia remnant, even if you do need false color enhancement to see the fucking thing. Now, though, now I want to know. This creature crying out across the gulf, massive as a moon, wide as a solar system, tenuous and fragile as an insect's wing, I'd gladly cash in some of my life to learn its secrets. How does it work? How can it even live here at the edge of absolute zero, much less think? What vast, unfathomable intellect must it possess to see us coming from over a half light year away, to deduce the nature of our eyes and our instruments, to send a signal we can detect, much less understand? And what happens when we punch through it at a fifth the speed of light? I call up the latest findings on my way to bed, and the answer hasn't changed. Not much. The damn thing's already full of holes. Comets, asteroids, the usual protoplanetary junk careens through this system as it does through every other. Infra picks up diffuse pockets of slow outgassing here and there around the perimeter, where the soft vaporous vacuum of the interior bleeds into the harder stuff outside. Even if we were going to tear through the dead center of the thinking part, I can't imagine this vast creature feeling so much as a pinprick. At the speed we're going, we'd be through and gone too fast to overcome even the feeble inertia of a millimeter membrane. And yet, stop, stop, stop. It's not us, of course. It's what we're building. The birth of a gate is a violent, painful thing, a space-time rape that puts out almost as much gamma and X as a microquasar. Any meat within the white zone turns to ash in an instant, shielded or not. It's why we never slow down to take the pictures. One of the reasons, anyway. We can't stop, of course. Even changing course isn't an option except by the barest increments. Aerie soars like an eagle between the stars, but she steers like a pig on the short haul. Tweak our heading by even a tenth of a degree, and you've got some serious damage at 20% light speed. Half a degree would tear us apart. The ship might torque in onto the new heading, but the collapsed mass in her belly would keep right on going, rip through all this surrounding superstructure without even feeling it. Even tame singularities get set in their ways. They do not take well to change.
We resurrect again, and the island has changed its tune. It gave up asking us to stop, stop, stop the moment our laser hit its leading edge. Now it's saying something else entirely. Dark hyphens flow across its skin, arrows of pigment converging towards some offstage focus like spokes pointing toward the hub of a wheel. The bullseye itself is offstage and implicit, far removed from 428's bright backdrop, but it's easy enough to extrapolate to the point of convergence 6 light secs to starboard. There's something else, too. A shadow, roughly circular, moving along one of the spokes like a bead running along a string. It, too, migrates to starboard, falls off the edge of the island's makeshift display, is endlessly reborn at the same initial coordinates to repeat its journey. Those coordinates, exactly where our current trajectory will punch through the membrane in another 4 months. A squinting god would be able to see the gnats and girders of ongoing construction on the other side, the great piecemeal torus of the hawking hoop already taking shape. The message is so obvious that even Dix sees it. Wants us to move the gate. And there is something like confusion in his voice. But how's it know we're building one? The Vons punctured it en route, the chimp points out. It could have sensed that. It has photopigments. It can probably see. Probably sees better than we do, I say. Even something as simple as a pinhole camera gets high res fast if you stipple a bunch of them across 30 million square kilometers. But Dix scrunches his face, unconvinced. So sees a bunch of Vons bumping around. Loose parts, not that much even assembled yet. How's it know we're building something hot? Because it is very, very smart, you stupid child. Is it so hard to believe that this organism seems far too limiting a word, can just imagine how those half-built pieces fit together, glance at our sticks and stones, and see exactly where this is going? Maybe it's not the first gate it's seen, Dix suggests. Think there's maybe another gate out here? I shake my head. We'd have seen the lensing artifacts by now. You ever run into anyone before? No. We have always been alone through all these epochs. We have only ever run away. And then always from our own children. I crunch some numbers. 182 days to insemination. If we move now, we've only got to tweak our bearings by a few mics to redirect to the new coordinates. Well within the green. Angles get dicey the longer we wait, of course. We can't do that, the chimp says. We would miss the gate by 2 million kilometers. Move the gate. Move the whole damn site. Move the refineries, move the factories, move the damn rocks. A couple 100 meters a second would be more than fast enough if we send the order now. We don't even have to suspend construction. We can keep building on the fly. Every one of those vectors widens the nested confidence limits of the build. It would increase the risk of error beyond allowable margins, for no payoff. And what about the fact that there's an intelligent being in our path? I'm already allowing for the potential presence of an intelligent alien life. Okay, first off, there's nothing potential about it. It's right fucking there. And on our current heading, we run the damn thing over. We are staying clear of all planetary bodies in Goldilocks orbits. We've seen no local evidence of spacefaring technology. The current location of the build meets all conservation criteria. That's because the people who drew up your criteria never anticipated a live Dyson sphere. But I'm wasting my breath, and I know it. The chimp can run its equations a million times, but if there's nowhere to put the variable, what can it do? There was a time, back before things turned ugly, when we had clearance to reprogram those parameters, before we discovered that one of the things that admins had anticipated was mutiny. I try another tack. Consider the threat potential. There's no evidence of any. Look at the synapse estimate. That thing's got orders of mag more processing power than the whole civilization that sent us out here. You think something can be that smart, live that long without learning how to defend itself? We're assuming it's asking us to move the gate. What if that's not a request? What if it's just giving us the chance to back off before it takes matters into its own hands? Doesn't have hands, Dix says from the other side of the tank, and he's not even being flippant. He's just being so stupid I want to bash his face in. I try to keep my voice level. Maybe it doesn't need any. What could it do? Blink us to death? No weapons. Doesn't even control the whole membrane. Signal propagation's too slow. We don't know. That's my point. We haven't even tried to find out. We're a goddamn road crew. Our on-site presence is a bunch of construction vons press-ganged into scientific research. We can figure out some basic physical parameters, but we don't know how this thing thinks, what kind of natural defenses it might have. What do you need to find out? The chimp asks, the very voice of calm reason. We can't find out, I want to scream. We're stuck with what we've got. By the time the on-site Vons could build what we need, we're already past the point of no return. You stupid fucking machine, we're on track to kill a being smarter than all of human history, and you can't even be bothered to move our highway to the vacant lot next door? But of course, if I say that, the island's chances of survival go from low to zero. So I grasp at the only straw that remains. Maybe the data we've got in hand is enough. If acquisition is off the table, maybe analysis will do. I need time, I say. Of course, the chimp tells me. Take all the time you need.
The chimp is not content to kill this creature. The chimp has to spit on it as well. Under the pretense of assisting in my research, it tries to deconstruct the island, break it apart, and force it to conform to grubby earthbound precedents. It tells me about earthly bacteria that thrived at 1.5 million rads and laughed at hard vacuum. It shows me pictures of unkillable little tardigrades that could curl up and snooze on the edge of absolute zero, felt equally at home in deep ocean trenches and deeper space. Given time, opportunity, a boot off the planet, who knows how far those cute little invertebrates might have gone? Might they have survived the very death of the homeworld, clung together, grown somehow colonial? What utter bullshit. I learn what I can. I study the alchemy by which photosynthesis transforms light and gas and electrons into living tissue. I learn the physics of the solar wind that blows the bubble taut, calculate lower metabolic limits for a life form that filters organics from the ether. I marvel at the speed of this creature's thoughts. Almost as fast as airy flies, orders of mag faster than any mammalian nerve impulse. Some kind of organic superconductor, perhaps, something that passes chilled electrons almost resistance-free out here in the freezing void. I acquaint myself with phenotypic plasticity and sloppy fitness, that fortuitous evolutionary soft focus that lets species exist in alien environments and express novel traits they never needed at home. Perhaps this is how a life form with no natural enemies could acquire teeth and claws and the willingness to use them. The island's life hinges on its ability to kill us. I have to find something that makes it a threat. But all I uncover is a growing suspicion that I am doomed to fail. For violence, I begin to see, is a planetary phenomenon. Planets are the abusive parents of evolution. Their very surfaces promote warfare, concentrate resources into dense, defensible patches that can be fought over. Gravity forces you to squander energy on vascular systems and skeletal support, stand endless watch against an endless sadistic campaign to squash you flat. Take one wrong step off a perch too high, and all your pricey architecture shatters in an instant. And even if you beat those odds, cobble together some lumbering armored chassis to withstand the slow crawl onto land, how long before the world draws in some asteroid or comet to crash down from the heavens and reset your clock to zero? Is it any wonder we grew up believing life was a struggle, that zero sum was God's own law, and the future belonged to those who crushed the competition? The rules are so different out here. Most of space is tranquil. No deal or seasonal cycles, no ice ages or global tropics, no wild pendulum swings between hot and cold, calm and tempestuous. Life's precursors abound. On comets, clinging to asteroids, suffusing nebulae 100 light-years across. Molecular clouds glow with organic chemistry and life-giving radiation. Their vast, dusty wings grow warm with infrared, filter out the hard stuff, give rise to stellar nurseries that only some stunted refugee from the bottom of a gravity well could ever call lethal. Darwin's an abstraction here, an irrelevant curiosity. This island puts the lie to everything we were ever told about the machinery of life. Sun-powered, perfectly adapted, immortal, it won no struggle for survival. Where are the predators, the competitors, the parasites? All of life around 428 is one vast continuum, one grand act of symbiosis. Nature here is not red in tooth and claw. Nature, out here, is the helping hand. Lacking the capacity for violence, the island has outlasted worlds. Unencumbered by technology, it has outthought civilizations. It is intelligent beyond our measure, and it is benign. It must be. I grow more certain of that with each passing hour. How can it even conceive of an enemy? I think of the things I called it before I knew better. Meat balloon. Cyst. Looking back, those words verge on blasphemy. I will not use them again. Besides, there's another word that would fit better, if the chimp has its way. Roadkill. And the longer I look, the more I fear that the hateful machine is right. If the island can defend itself, I sure as shit can't see how.
Area 4 is impossible, you know. Violates the laws of physics. We're in one of the social alcoves off the ventral notochord, taking a break from the library. I've decided to start again from first principles. Dix eyes me with an understandable mix of confusion and mistrust. My claim is almost too stupid to deny. It's true, I assure him. Takes way too much energy to accelerate a ship with Ares mass, especially at relativistic speeds. You'd need the energy output of a whole sun. People figured if we made it to the stars at all, we'd have to do it in ships maybe the size of your thumb. Crew them with virtual personalities downloaded onto chips. That's too nonsensical, even for Dix. That concept, of course, is explored pretty thoroughly in a bunch of Gregg Egan, some of which I've read aloud on stream, some of which I have yet to read on stream. That's too nonsensical, even for Dix. Wrong. Don't have mass, can't fall towards anything. Airy wouldn't work if it was that wouldn't even work if it was that small. But suppose you can't displace any of that mass. No wormholes, no Higgs conduits, nothing to throw your gravitational field in the direction of travel. Your center of mass just sits there in, well, the center of your mass. A spastic Dixian headshake. Do have those things. Sure we do. But for the longest time, we didn't know it. His foot taps an agitated tattoo on the deck. It's the theory of the species, I explain. We think we've worked everything out. We think we've solved all the mysteries, and then someone finds some niggling little data point that doesn't fit the paradigm. Every time we try to paper over the crack, it gets bigger, and before you know it, our whole worldview unravels. It's happened time and again. One day, mass is a constraint. The next, it's a requirement. The things we think we know, they change, Dix, and we have to change with them. But the chimp can't change. The rules it's following are 10 billion years old, and it's got no fucking imagination, and really, that's not anyone's fault. That's just people who didn't know how else to keep the mission stable across deep time. They wanted to keep us on track, so they built something that couldn't go off it. But they also knew that things change, so that's why we're out here, Dix. To deal with things the chimp can't. The alien, Dix says. The alien. Chimp deals with it just fine. How? By killing it? Not our fault it's in the way. It's no threat. I don't care whether it's a threat or not. It's alive and it's intelligent, and killing it just to expand some alien empire. Human empire. Our empire. Suddenly, Dix's hands have stopped twitching. Suddenly, he stands still as stone. I snort. What do you know about humans? Am one. You're a fucking trilobite. You ever see what comes out of those gates once they're online? Mostly nothing. He pauses, thinking back. A couple of ships once, maybe. Well, I've seen a lot more than that, and believe me, if those things were ever human, it was a passing phase. But, Dix, I take a deep breath, try to get back on message. Look, it's not your fault. You've been getting all your info from a moron stuck on a rail. But we're not doing this for humanity. We're not doing it for Earth. Earth is gone. Don't you understand that? The sun scorched it black a billion years after we left. Whatever we're working for, it won't even talk to us. Yeah? Then why do this? Why not just quit? He really doesn't know. We tried, I say. And your chimp shut off our life support. For once, he has nothing to say. It's a machine, Dix. Why can't you get that? It's programmed. It can't change. We're machines, just built from different things. We change. Yeah? Last time I checked, you were sucking so hard on that thing's tit you couldn't even kill your cortical link. How I learn. No reason to change. How about acting like a damn human once in a while? How about developing a little rapport with the folks who might have to save you, who might have to save your miserable life next time you go EVA? That enough of a reason for you? Because I don't mind telling you, right now I don't trust you as far as I could throw the tack tank. I don't even know for sure who I'm talking to right now. Not my fault. For the first time, I see something outside the usual gamut of fear, confusion, and simple-minded computation playing across his face. That's you. That's all of you. You talk sideways, think sideways. You all do, and it hurts. Something hardens in his face. Didn't even need you online for this, he growls. Didn't want you. Could have managed the whole world build myself. Told Chimp I could do it. But Chimp thought you should wake me up anyway, and you always roll over for the Chimp, don't you? Because the Chimp always knows best. The Chimp's your boss. The Chimp's your fucking god. Which is why I have to get out of bed to nursemaid some idiot savant who can't even answer a hail without being led by the nose. Something clicks in the back of my mind, but I'm on a roll. You want a real role model? You want something to look up to? Forget the chimp, forget the mission. Look out the forward scope, why don't you? Look at what your precious chimp wants to run over, because it happens to be in the way. That thing is better than any of us. It's smarter, it's peaceful, it doesn't wish us any harm. How can you know that? Can't know that. No, you can't know that because you're fucking stunted. Any normal caveman would see it in a second, but you, that's crazy. Dix hisses at me. You're crazy. You're bad. I'm bad. Some distant part of me hears the giddy squeak in my voice, the borderline hysteria. For the mission? Dix turns his back and stalks away. My hands are hurting. I look down, surprised. My fists are clenched so tightly that my nails cut into the flesh of my palms. It takes a real effort to open them again. I almost remember how this feels. I used to feel this way all the time, way back when everything mattered. Before passion faded to ritual, before rage cooled to disdain, before Sunday Asmundin, eternity's warrior, settled for heaping insults on stunted children. We were incandescent back then. Part of this ship are, Parts of this ship are still scorched and uninhabitable, even now. I remember this feeling. This is how it feels to be awake.
I am awake, and I am alone, and I am sick of being outnumbered by morons. There are rules, and there are risks that you don't want to wake the dead on a whim, but fuck it. I'm calling reinforcements. Dix has got to have other parents, a father at least. He didn't get that Y chromo from me. I swallow my own disquiet and check the manifest, bring up the gene sequences, cross-reference. Huh, only one other parent. Kai. I wonder if that's just coincidence, or if the chimp drew too many conclusions from our torrid little fuckfest back in the Sig Rift. Doesn't matter. He's as much yours as mine, Kai. Time to step up to the plate. Time to... Oh, shit. Oh, no. Please, no. There are rules, and there are risks. 3 builds back, it says. Kai and Connie. Both of them. One airlock jammed, the next too far away along Ares' hull, a Hail Mary emergency crawl between. They made it back inside, but not before the blue-shifted background cooked them in their suits. They kept breathing for hours afterward, talked and moved and cried as if they were still alive, while their insides broke down and bled out. There were 2 others awake that shift, 2 others left to clean up the mess. Ishmael and you said, "You fucker!" I leap up and hit my son hard in the face, 10 seconds heartbreak with 10 million years denial raging behind it. I feel teeth give way behind his lips. He goes over backwards, eyes wide as telescopes, the blood already blooming on his mouth. "Said I could come back!" he squeals, scrambling backwards along the deck. "He was your fucking father! You knew! You were there! He died right in front of you and you didn't even tell me!" I... Why didn't you tell me, you asshole? The chimp told you to lie, is that it? Did you... That you knew! He cries. Why wouldn't you know? My rage vanishes like air through a breach. I sag back into the pod, face in hands. "Right there in the log," he whimpers. "All along. Nobody hid it. How could you not know?" "I did," I admit dully. Or I mean... I didn't know, but it's not a surprise. Not really, not down deep. You just stop looking after a while. There are rules. Never even asked, my son says softly, how they were doing. I raise my eyes. Dix regards me wide-eyed from across the room, backed up against the wall, too scared to risk bolting past me to the door. What are you doing here? I ask tiredly. His voice catches. He has to try twice. You said I could come back if I burned out my link. You burned out your link. He gulps and nods. He wipes blood with the back of his hand. What did the chimp say about that? He said it was okay, Dix says, in such a transparent attempt to suck up that I actually believe, in that instant, that he might really be on his own. So you asked its permission. He begins to nod, but I can see the tell in his face. Don't bullshit me, Dix. He actually suggested it. I see. So we could talk, Dix adds. What do you want to talk about? He looks at the floor and shrugs. I stand and walk towards him. He tenses, but I shake my head, spread my hands. It's okay. It's okay. I lean back against the wall and slide down until I'm beside him on the deck. We just sit there for a while. It's been so long, I say at last. He looks at me, uncomprehending. What does long even mean out here? I try again. They say there's no such thing as altruism, you know? His eyes blank for an instant and grow panicky, and I know that he's just tried to ping his link for a definition and come up blank. So we are alone. Altruism, I explain. Unselfishness. Doing something that costs you but helps someone else. He seems to get it. They say every selfless act ultimately comes down to manipulation or kin selection or reciprocity or something, but they're wrong. I close my eyes. This is harder than I expected. I could have been happy just knowing that Kai was okay, that Connie was happy. Even if it didn't benefit me one whit, even if it cost me, even if there was no chance I'd ever see either of them again, almost any price would be worth it just to know they were okay, just to believe they were. So you haven't seen her for the past 5 builds. So he hasn't drawn your shift since Sagittarius. They're just sleeping. Maybe next time. So you don't check, Dix says slowly. Blood bubbles on his lower lip. He doesn't seem to notice. We don't check. Only I did, and now they're gone. They're both gone, except for those little cannibalized nucleotides the chimp recycled into this defective and maladapted son of mine. We're the only warm-blooded creatures for 1,000 light years, and I am so very lonely. I'm sorry, I whisper, and lean forward, and lick the gore from his bruised and bloody lips.
Back on Earth, back when there was an Earth, there were these little animals called cats. I had one for a while. Sometimes I'd watch him sleep for hours, paws and whiskers and ears all twitching madly as he chased imaginary prey across whatever landscapes his sleeping brain conjured up. My son looks like that when the chimp worms its way into his dreams. It's almost too literal for metaphor. The cable runs into his head like some kind of parasite, feeding through old-fashioned fiber op now that the wireless option's been burned away. Or force feeding, I suppose. The poison flows into Dix's head, not out of it. I shouldn't be here. Didn't I just throw a tantrum over violation of my own privacy? Just. 12 light days ago. Everything's relative. And yet I can see no privacy here for Dix to lose. No decorations on the walls, no artwork or hobbies, no wraparound console. The sex toys, ubiquitous in every suite, sit unused on their shelves. I'd have assumed he was on anti-libidinals, if recent experience hadn't proven otherwise. What am I doing? Is this some kind of perverted mothering instinct, some vestigial expression of a Pleistocene maternal subroutine? Am I that much of a robot? Has my brainstem sent me here to guard my child? To guard my mate? Lover or larva, it hardly matters. His quarters are an empty shell. There's nothing of Dick's in here. That's just his abandoned body lying there in the pseudopod, fingers twitching, eyes flickering beneath closed lids in vicarious response to wherever his mind has gone. They don't know I'm here. The chimp doesn't know because we burned out its prying eyes a billion years ago, and my son doesn't know I'm here because, well, because for him, right now, there is no here. What am I supposed to make of you, Dix? None of this makes sense. Even your body language looks like you grew it in a vat. But I'm far from the first human being you've seen. You grew up in good company, with people I know, people I trust. Trusted. Trusted. How did you end up on the other side? How did they let you slip away? And why didn't they warn me about you? Yes, there are rules. There is the threat of enemy surveillance during long dead nights, the threat of other losses. But this is unprecedented. Surely someone could have left something, some clue buried in a metaphor too subtle for the simple-minded to decode. I'd give a lot to tap into that pipe to see what you're seeing now. Can't risk it, of course. I'd give myself away the moment I tried to sample anything except the basic baud, and... Wait a second. That baud rate's way too low. That's not even enough for high-res graphics, let alone tactile and olfac. You're embedded in a wireframe world at best. And yet, look at you go. The fingers, the eyes, like a cat, dreaming of mice and apple pies. Like me, replaying the long-lost oceans and mountaintops of Earth before I learned that living in the past was just another way of dying in the present. The bitrate says this is barely even a test pattern. The body says you're immersed in a whole other world. How has that machine tricked you into treating such thin gruel as a feast? Why would it even want to? Data are better grasped when they can be grasped, and tasted, and heard. Our brains are built for far richer nuance than splines and scatterplots. Spleens? I can't remember the pronunciation. The driest technical briefings are more sensual than this. Why settle for stick figures when you can paint in oils and holograms? Why does anyone simplify anything? To reduce the variable set, to manage the unmanageable. Kai and Connie. Now there were a couple of tangled, unmanageable datasets. Before the accident. Before the scenario simplified. Someone should have warned me about you, Dix. Maybe someone tried.
And so it comes to pass that my son leaves the nest, encases himself in a beetle carapace, and goes walkabout. He is not alone. One of the chimp's teleops accompanies him out on Ares' hull, lest he lose his footing and fall back into the starry past. Maybe this will never be more than a drill. Maybe this scenario, catastrophic control systems failure, the chimp and its backups offline, all maintenance tasks suddenly thrown onto shoulders of flesh and blood, is a dress rehearsal for a crisis that never happens. But even the unlikeliest scenario approaches certainty over the life of a universe. So we go through the motions. We practice. We hold our breath and dip outside. We're on a tight deadline. Even armored, moving at this speed, the blue shifted background rad would cook us in hours. Worlds have lived and died since I last used the pickup in my suite. Chimp, here as always Sunday, smooth and glib and friendly, the easy rhythm of the practiced psychopath. I know what you're doing. I don't understand. You think I don't see what's going on? You're building the next release. You're getting too much grief from the old guard, so you're starting from scratch with people who don't remember the old days. People you've simplified. The chimp says nothing. The drone's feed shows dicks clambering across a jumbled terrain of basalt and metal matrix composites. But you can't raise a human child, not on your own. I know it tried. There's no record of Dix anywhere on the crew manifest until his mid-teens, when he just showed up one day and nobody asked about it because nobody ever. Look what you've made of him. He's great at conditional if-thens. Can't beat on number crunching and do loops. Can't be beat on number crunching and do loops. But he can't think. Can't make the simplest intuitive jumps. You're like one of those. I remember an earthly myth from the days when reading did not seem like such an obscene waste of lifespan. One of those wolves trying to raise a human child. You can teach him how to move around on hands and knees, you can teach him about pack dynamics, but you can't teach him how to walk on his hind legs or talk or be human because you're too fucking stupid, chimp, and you finally realized it. And that's why you threw him at me. You think I can fix him for you. I take a breath and a gambit. But he's nothing to me. You understand? He's worse than nothing. He's a liability. He's a spy. He's a spastic waste of O2. Give me one reason why I shouldn't just lock him out there until he cooks. You're his mother, the chimp says, because the chimp has read all about kin selection and is too stupid for nuance. You're an idiot. You love him. No. An icy lump forms in my chest. My mouth makes words, they come out measured and inflectionless. I can't love anyone, you brain-dead machine. That's why I'm out here. Do you really think they'd gamble your precious never-ending mission on little glass dolls that needed to bond? You love him. I can kill him any time I want. And that's exactly what I'll do if you don't move the gate. I'd stop you, the chimp says mildly. Oh, that's easy enough. Just move the gate and we both get what we want. Or you can dig in your heels and try to reconcile your need for a mother's touch with my sworn intention of breaking the little fucker's neck. We've got a long trip ahead of us, chimp, and you might find I'm not quite as easy to cut out of the equation as Kai and Connie. You cannot end the mission, it says almost gently. You tried that already. This isn't about ending the mission. This is only about slowing it down a little. Your optimal scenario's off the table. The only way that gate's going to get furnished now is by saving the island or killing your prototype. Your call. The cost benefit's pretty simple. The chimp could solve it in an instant. But still it says nothing. The silence stretches. It's looking for some other options. It's looking for some other option, I bet. It's trying to find a workaround. It's questioning the very premises of the scenario, trying to decide if I mean what I'm saying, if all its book learning about mother love could really be so far off base. Maybe it's plumbing historical intrafamilial murder rates, looking for a loophole. And there may be one, for all I know. But the chimp isn't me. It's a simpler system trying to figure out a smarter one. And that gives me the edge. You would owe me, it says at last. I almost burst out laughing. What? Or I will tell Dixon that you threatened to kill him. Go ahead. You don't want him to know. I don't care whether he knows or not. What? You think he'll try and kill me back? You think I'll lose his love? I linger on the last word, stretch it out to show how ludicrous it is. You'll lose his trust. You need to trust each other out here. Oh, right. Trust. The very fucking foundation of this mission. The chimp says nothing. For the sake of argument, I say after a while, suppose I go along with it. What would I owe you exactly? A favor, the chimp replies, to be repaid in future. My son floats innocently against the stars, his life in balance. We sleep. The chimp makes grudging corrections to a myriad small dir- to myriad small trajectories. I set the alarm to wake me every couple of weeks, burn a little more of my candle in case the enemy tries to pull another fast one, but for now it seems to be behaving itself. DHF 428 jumps towards us in the non. Oh, I just realized I forgot to switch the microphone. One sec.
We sleep. The chimp makes grudging corrections to a myriad small trajectories. A myriad of? I don't know, it's missing something where it has an extra A. I set the alarm to wake me every couple of weeks, burn a little more of my candle in case the enemy tries to pull another fast one, but for now it seems to be behaving itself. DHF 428 jumps towards us in the stop motion increments of a life's moments, strung like beads along an infinite string. The factory floor slews to starboard in our sights. Refineries, reservoirs, and nanofab plants, swarms of von Neumanns breeding and cannibalizing and recycling each other into shielding and circuitry, tugboats and spare parts. The very finest Cro-Magnon technology mutates and metastasizes across the universe like armor-plated cancer. And hanging like a curtain between it and us shimmers an iridescent life form, fragile and immortal and unthinkably alien, that reduces everything my species ever accomplished to mud and shit by the simple transcendent fact of its existence. I have never believed in gods, in universal good or absolute evil. I have only ever believed that there is what works and what doesn't. All the rest is smoke and mirrors, trickery to manipulate grunts like me. But I believe in the island because I don't have to. It does not need to be taken on faith. It looms ahead of us, its existence an empirical fact. I will never know its mind, I will never know the details of its origin and evolution. But I can see it. Massive, mind boggling, so utterly inhuman that it can't help but be better than us, better than anything we could ever become. I believe in the island. I've gambled my own son to save its life. I would kill him to avenge its death. I may yet. In all these millions of wasted years, I have finally done something worthwhile.
Final approach. Reticles within reticles line up before me, a mesmerizing infinite regress of bullseyes centering on target. Even now, mere minutes from ignition, distance reduces the unborn gate to invisibility. There will be no moment when the naked eye can trap our destination. We thread the needle far too quickly. It will be behind us before we know it. Or, if our course corrections are off by even a hair, if our trillion-kilometer curve drifts by as much as 1,000 meters, we will be dead before we know it. Our instruments report that we are precisely on target. The chimp tells me that we are precisely on target. Areophoria. Areophora falls forward, pulled endlessly through the void by her own magically displaced mass. I turn to the drone's eye view relayed from up ahead. It's a window into history. Even now there's a time lag of several minutes, but past and present race closer to convergence with every Corsac. The newly minted gate looms dark and ominous against the stars, a great gaping mouth built to devour reality itself. The Vaughns, the refineries, the assembly lines, parked to the side in vertical columns, their jobs done, their usefulness outlived, their collateral annihilation imminent, I pity them for some reason. I always do. I wish we could scoop them up and take them with us, re-enlist them for the next build. But the rules of economics reach everywhere, and they say it's cheaper to use our tools once and throw them away. A rule that the chimp seems to be taking more to heart than anyone expected. At least we've spared the island. I wish we could have stayed a while. First contact with a truly alien intelligence, and what do we exchange? Traffic signals. What does the island dwell upon when not pleading for its life? I thought of asking. I thought of waking myself when the time lag dropped from prohibitive to merely inconvenient, of working out some pigeon that could encompass the truths and philosophies of a mind vaster than all humanity. What a childish fantasy. The island exists too far beyond the grotesque Darwinian processes that shaped my own flesh. There can be no communion here, no meeting of minds. Angels do not speak to ants. Less than 3 minutes to ignition. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Ares' incidental time machine barely looks into the past anymore. I could almost hold my breath across the whole span of seconds that then needs to overtake now. Still on target, according to all sources. Tactical beeps at us. Getting a signal, Dix reports, and yes, in the heart of the tank, the sun is flickering again. My heart leaps. Does the angel speak to us after all? A thank you, perhaps? A cure for heat death? But it's ahead of us, Dix murmurs, as sudden realization catches in my throat. 2 minutes. Miscalculated somehow, Dix whispers. Didn't move the gate far enough. We did, I say. We moved it exactly as far as the island told us to. Still in front of us! Look at the sun! Look at the signal, I tell him. Because it's nothing like the painstaking traffic signs we followed over the past 3 trillion kilometers. It's almost random, somehow. It's spur of the moment. It's panicky. It's the sudden, startled cry of something caught utterly by surprise with mere seconds left to act. And even though I have never seen this pattern of dots and swirls before, I know exactly what it must be saying. Stop. 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 We do not stop. There is no force in the universe that can even slow us down. Past equals present. Ariophora dives through the center of the gate in a nanosecond. The unimaginable mass of her cold black heart snags some distant dimension, drags it screaming to the here and now. The booted portal erupts behind us, blossoms into a great blinding corona, every wavelength lethal to every living thing. Our aft filters clamp down tight. The scorching wavefront chases us into the darkness as it has 1,000 times before. In time, as always, the birth pangs will subside. The wormhole will settle in its collar. And just maybe, we will still be close enough to glimpse some new transcendent monstrosity emerging from that magic doorway. I wonder if you'll notice the corpse we left behind.
Maybe we're missing something, Dix says. We miss almost everything, I tell him. DHF 428 shifts red behind us. Lensing artifacts wink in our rear view. The gate has stabilized and the wormhole's online, blowing light and space and time in an iridescent bubble from its great metal mouth. We'll keep looking over our shoulders right up until we pass the Raleigh limit, far past the point it'll do any good. So far, though, nothing's come out. Maybe our numbers were wrong, he says. Maybe we made a mistake. Our numbers were right. An hour doesn't pass when I don't check them again. The island just had enemies, I guess. Victims, anyway. I was right about one thing, though. That fucker was smart. To see us coming, to figure out how to talk to us, to use us as a weapon, to turn a threat to its very existence into I guess fly swatter is as good a word as any. Maybe there was a war I mumble. Maybe it wanted the real estate. Or maybe it was just some family squabble. Maybe it didn't know. Maybe didn't know, Dick suggests, though maybe thought those coordinates were empty. Why would you think that? I wonder. Why would you even care? And then it dawns on me. He doesn't. Not about the island, anyway. No more than he ever did. He's not inventing these rosy alternatives for himself. My son is trying to comfort me. I don't need to be coddled, though. I was a fool. I let myself believe in life without conflict, in sentience without sin. For a little while I dwelt in a dream world where life was unselfish and unmanipulative, where every living thing did not struggle to exist at the expense of other life. I deified that which I could not understand, when in the end it was all too easily understood. But I'm better now. It's over. Another build, another benchmark, another irreplaceable slice of life that brings our task no closer to completion. It doesn't matter how successful we are. It doesn't matter how well we do our job. Mission accomplished is a meaningless phrase on Ariophora, an ironic oxymoron at best. There may one day be failure, but there is no finish line. We go on forever, crawling across the universe like ants, dragging our goddamned superhighway behind us. I still have so much to learn. At least my son is here to teach me. And that was The Island by Peter Watts. It is a sequel of sorts, tangentially, to, as I carefully move my microphone back into position, to the freeze frame revolution. He's got some other little fiblets, as he calls them, little fictive couple pages written here and there that are set in the universe. Indeed, his next book that he's going to publish is going to be set in this universe. I eagerly anticipate it with bated breath. I think it's fairly fascinating. I think on balance, I'm probably looking forward to Blindopraxia Book 3 a little more, but I still do thoroughly enjoy the, I think it's called the Sunflower Sequence. You can check out the Freeze Frame Revolution on my playlist that I've set up for it years ago now. A year ago now? I don't remember how long it's been. It's been a while. But it's a good one, about Sunday Asmundin. Anyway, that's where we will call it for this week. It was a long one. This week, this day, today, as I continue to put the beast through its paces. Hopefully, it wasn't too quiet. Hopefully, background noise wasn't too bad. I made sure I had the window closed so you couldn't catch the road sounds. Next time, I'll probably lower my computer's fan speed a bit. It's not revved all the way, but it is high enough that it's being picked up pretty easily. So reducing that probably would be good. Anyway, that is where I'll call it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Friday, we will continue reading through some of these. I'll try sitting in different positions. I'll try doing different things. I'll see how things work. How long will 2 of these stories wind up being? Frag asked himself. There's 1... and there's 2. That is pretty much about the same amount of time. Okay, that's fine. That is fine. We will do that. But yeah, thanks to everyone who tuned in. Thanks to everyone who's giving me feedback. It is appreciated. This is me putting something through its paces, and I find the task of listening to myself do it physically abhorrent. So other people doing it for me is much better. I am lazy, you see. Possibly with self-esteem issues or something. I bet a head shrinker would have a field day. Or not. They'd just be bored and collect a paycheck. I don't know. I'm not depressed per se. Wow, this got bleak real quick. I don't see the need, is what I'm saying. For me. I'm glad it works for other people. I'm stuck in my own head enough as it is. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Yes, this story reminds me a bit of Sphere by Michael Crichton, says Gabby. It is kind of like that in terms of sort of a first contact tale. Um, I've been tempted to read some of my Michael Crichton collection on stream. I'd probably stop after, like, Timeline. Yeah, probably do, like, Terminal Man, Andromeda Strain, Jurassic Park, Lost World, Sphere. There's one or two others that are worth it. I would not probably read, what's it called? What was that last one he came? One of those last ones he came out with before he bit it. The Element of Fear? No, I can't remember the title off the top of my noggin. It's been a minute. I can't quite see it from... Oh, Jesus, one sec. Sorry about that. State of Fear, I think it was called. Doesn't matter. I won't be reading it. It's, for a good long while, it was like the climate denier's Bible, even though I don't think it was necessarily written with that intention. Climate change denier's Bible. It's about some eco-terrorists who are doing eco-terrorist things that are being rendered as unironically the villains. I'm not saying that doing acts of eco-terrorism is necessarily good, but at least they stand for something. That came across as promoting violence. Anyway, they have a plan to greatly affect human civilization as we know it by forcibly raising the sea level, as I recall. They're also, like, causing earthquakes and weather and stuff somehow. Like they have a weather control device or something. I can't remember now. It's been a long time since I read it. Well, it picks those bonks up pretty clear. Jesus. Anyway, those are the bad guys trying to say, hey, by the way, climate change is real. Those are the bad guys in the book. So suffice it to say, while I try not to be too politically correct on this one, doing these, and try not to insert too much ideology, I kind of can't help it. At a certain point, a line does have to be drawn. Like, I'm not going to be reading The Fountainhead on here. Because fuck Ayn Rand. In a big way. Not, like, actually copulate with that. Jesus Christ, God, no. Way too twitchy. Watch that person in an interview and feel a little disturbed by proximity. Ugh. Ugh. Homegirl had issues. I think she's dead now, isn't she? I would not be reading The Fountainhead on here. I'm not going to read Atlas Shrugged. Except to be like, here's Ayn Rand, however the fuck it's pronounced, I don't remember now. She had issues. That would be my only real reason for doing it. Otherwise, life is way too short. That said, I'd probably get a bunch of people tuning in, but they'd have to be okay with me openly scoffing at it and being like, "This is doggerel." But you know, long-winded doggerel with rape scenes that are good, supposed to be good, for the person being. It's just nonsense. It's so much more than that, and it is so much worse. If you haven't read it, I do not recommend. Strong do not recommend, but, you know, whatever. Vonnegut is a definite yes. I will get to some Vonnegut. I've got to find a couple... I got to find where I put my short story collections. I got to find where I put my copy of Slaughterhouse-Five. I don't know where they are. I looked briefly, and they're not in any of the places that they should be. So that's annoying. I will occasionally read books and stuff by authors that I don't think are particularly good. I will do so for giggles, because it is important to read bad things sometimes. If only to appreciate better the good things. I am not necessarily going to read every bad thing that I've ever read on here, because a lot of them are not worth it. Some are just zany enough to be fun, like Manfac. Uh, I don't know why I have a soft spot for that book. I shouldn't. It is pretty bad by most objective measures, but I am entertained by it. I think the general politics espoused by the protagonist aren't great. I think his behavior isn't ideal, but it is entertaining. If people are still tuned in for this yap session, it's good, because I need to know how bad these yap sessions sound with this new microphone. So there. Ah. Anyway, anything else further? Yeah, no. So Friday, and I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll get through the whole thing over the rest of this week and next, before I'm gone for 2-3 weeks. Probably 3 weeks, and I meant to. I'll put up a post in the Discord saying when I'm going to be gone, so people there can just look at a glance. And I'll even do it with a universal time code, so people will see universally what time that means for them. I've kind of already done that for the streams themselves. Anyway, I'm going to leave. Not this mortal coil. For today. My brain just turned off for that entire duration. That was a never-ending epoch of absolutely no chemical activity going on in my brain. That was spooky. I didn't like that. That made me scared. So Peter Watts. These tend towards being rather edgy. He is a rather edgy author, in truth. I do adore The Things, though. I think it's a cute one. Kind of plays with his themes of... it's a great inversion of the movie The Thing, which is a movie, of course, I adore. It's just a fun romp. Kurt Russell, what's his face, who plays Goliath on Gargoyles, among others. Yeah, so it's got a great cast. Also, it's got a soundtrack that's mostly a heartbeat, so that's pretty cool. Thanks, Carpenter. Yeah, good fun, that one. Horrifying, though. Good fun. I thoroughly enjoy it. And then this one being its own thing, kind of an extension of the freeze frame revolution. Anyway, with all that, I'm a dip. Sees y'all later. Stay safe, stay sane, and be decent to each other now, you hear? Until next time, toodaloo! Maybe. Did I hit the wrong...